children was, we are our own destiny. How we live our lives will determine how history will judge us.
Songs Sweet as Spring. The 2023 Jubilate Orchestra and Choir in performance. The Hartwell Theatre, Wednesday, March 29, 5:30 p.m. A joint fundraising event by the Rotary Club of Grand Cayman and the Jubilate. Jubilate, inspiring young children in transition toward purpose and fulfillment through guidance. Reserve your ticket now through christianjvictory@gmail.com. Songs Sweet as Spring. Jubilate Orchestra and Choir, opening a universe of opportunity, supported by Rotary Central. Get your $50 ticket today. christianjvictory@gmail.com. All proceeds go to Rotary Club Grand Cayman and Jubilate. Help a child discover hidden talents. Jubilate and Rotary, all the good you imagine.
Radio Cayman's Historical Vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm becoming increasingly inclined to say to our listeners, not only listen to us on radio, but go to our social media sites or YouTube and our Facebook channels, and especially today, because sitting next to me as a handsome individual is even almost as equally handsome, the wonderful company of His Excellency the Governor. So join us for hopefully entertaining, informative, engaging, and enlightening discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks to His Excellency for sharing with us. I think as you, on the eve almost of your official departure, as it were, I'm grateful that you allow us to be able to have another conversation with you, to share as you wish with us and through our forum with our listeners. Good afternoon, sir.
Well, good afternoon, Dwayne, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to come on one final time to come on Talk Today. I've been on, I think, many times over the 4.5 years, and it's I suppose very mixed sort of feelings at the moment. On the one hand, some wonderful memories, and people are being very sort of kind and nice as we reach the end, but also it feels sad as well, and both Lizzie and I are feeling sad because we've got to know a lot of people here. We've really invested in the community and feel part of it, but we're going to have to leave that behind. Next Wednesday, when we will fly out it's the British Airways flight in the afternoon, after a little ceremony at the airport, which seems to be the normal pattern. So yeah, we're in less than a week to go now. But thank you very much for giving me one last chance to come in and talk to the community a bit.
And thank you for that too. And as we speak, to our people, perhaps increasing it, I want to ask you as much as you wish to share, because from my perception, the Cayman public and the Caymanians in general, how this not just hospitable, not just disrespectful and welcoming nature, but from our politically elected to those who occupy the office of the governor, this respect and this appreciation and the idea that we look with great admiration, and it's not anything other than a healthy respect. We can be jovial, sometimes formality, even a little bit informal. The sharing of something from the oven to the notion, come here, let me smell your neck, kind of deal.
Yeah,
we have that love for people.
No, you do, and we have felt really welcomed on these islands and accepted as a part of this community, and so many events, and that I think that respect for the role of governor is there, and I was appointed by Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth, now King Charles III, and the respect is there, and people are incredibly nice. I mean, on a lighter note, I think I'm in Cayman Brac. I think I managed to cause the longest traffic jam in their history, because I went over to Brac quite a lot, particularly during COVID. But I used to ride around on my bike, and the Brackers recognised me, and the two cars immediately behind me wouldn't overtake, and I'm sure that was out of courtesy or politeness. They didn't want to overtake, but then when I looked back, I saw a queue of cars,
all five
as
of them.
As far as the eye could see. So it was definitely a long traffic jam. But no, the courtesy and respect is definitely there. And I look back on 4.5 years, it's been incredibly eventful. I mean, so much has gone on. Obviously, COVID was a big part of that. I'll probably always be remembered as the COVID governor. That's an epitaph that I will take with me. But that was an extraordinary period in our history in the Cayman Islands and the world. And Cayman did incredibly well during COVID. The response is one of the best responses anywhere in the world. And I'm pleased as I leave that the UK Cayman relationship is in very good shape, very constructive, and I've said it before, and I do believe the Cayman UK relationship is the best of the relationships between UK and an overseas territory, and that I think is hugely to Cayman's benefit, and it's as I see my role being here to support the government of the day and help the government of the day deliver its programs, but having that sort of positive relationship with the UK really sort of helps that process.
And I think many times in our lives, professional, personal, there are things we wish we could have done or done more of, or done differently, or done sooner. And obviously, you probably will be asked that, and as you reflect, please share. But other things that were accomplished. Any particular thing other than the COVID?
I mean, I think quite a lot. I mean, COVID obviously was a key one. I would point to the setting up of the regiment, which I think was set up from scratch during a global pandemic, which gives us a new skill set dealing with humanitarian and disaster relief. So I think that was really important. I know the civil partnership law was a controversial topic, and I'm happy to talk about that. But again, I think the Court of Appeal required the UK to take action if Cayman didn't, and our Parliament narrowly was unable to do that. But that in itself has ensured that rights of everybody on the island are protected, and it is an advance for human rights in our jurisdiction. So I know it was sensitive for some, and it was civil partnerships. It wasn't same-sex marriage. A lot of people were saying, why don't you go to same-sex marriage? But we went for civil partnerships, reflecting the balance of opinion across the islands. We've also been very closely involved in sort of trying to support the government on climate change and energy, and my office with the former government was helping to prepare this climate change risk assessment. So we funded and got 2 UK NGOs to help with that, and I think this Premier Panton has grabbed that with both hands, and he's taken that work on in the Department of Environment, and that will become the bedrock of the new Cayman Islands climate change policy. So I think there's another tangible example of where that UK Cayman relationship works, because we were able to help with the technical expertise from some NGOs who could do this sort of thing, and then using all the local knowledge and the great people we have in DOE here, we're able to bring all that together. I think there's other areas where currently we have a visit coming out next week from the UK's Ofgem to talk to Ofreg about the possibility of a UK secondee. We're talking to people in Cayman in the transport area about a possible UK secondee to help on public transport. We've had a secondee in Customs and Border Control, so there's a number of areas behind the scenes where the UK has sought to help. But a lot of what the governor does is to sort of support our independent processes, so supporting our independent judiciary and the appointments process. We have a new female Chief Justice, the first female Chief Justice of the Cayman Islands. All the good governance commissions, there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes, and obviously RSIPs and the police, we are still, and we need to work to make sure we remain one of the safest places in the Caribbean, and I do pay tribute to the work of the police commissioner and his team for everything that they do. We have a new police service commission, which is one of a new good governance commission, which brings a bit more transparency and a bit more process to the senior appointments in the police service, and that came out of the constitutional changes in 2019, which I was part of, although as an observer, but I was able to support some of the things Cayman was seeking in those constitutional changes by being there and being part of the discussion. So there's a number of areas where I think I hope people will see that I've tried to help the jurisdiction move forward. Every country, every place has challenges. There's obviously a lot more to do in a lot of areas. But I do look back on that 4.5 years with some pride at the contribution. Myself and my office, I have a wonderful office, not a very big office, but in the governor's office I've got some really hard-working, committed staff who are there to help advance the UK-Cayman relationship and to help Cayman progress, and that I want to pay tribute to them as well.
It's that collaborative, cooperative spirit, and as you were talking about the Constitution, I reflect on Sir Geoffrey's comments consistently and very publicly that this is a living, breathing document, intent to be at least revisited every 5 years, not to be amended willy-nilly, but to have it reflect the people, its values, what it's looking at in terms of inculcating the ethos. And if we do that, I don't want to use the word advances, but we can make the necessary amendments and adjustments to ensure that there's greater participation on all of us. That's what a democracy is about, right?
It is, and the Constitution is, I think it stood the test of time. I think it's an excellent document, but as you say, they evolve. So we made some changes in 2019, and it's up to the current Cayman Islands government, if in the future it wishes to propose additional constitutional changes. We have an excellent constitutional commission chaired by Vaughan Carter, who do great work to raise awareness of constitutional issues, and I'm sure they will have suggestions and ideas to submit to the Cayman Islands government if there is a decision taken at some point in the future to do that.
And this is, I think, where the electorate particularly need, and I don't say this to offend anyone, but if we're going to want autonomy, we have to be willing to accept accountability if we want a corresponding responsibility. We need to become engaged, informed, involved, so that we understand what's happening and help to influence the agenda and not allow it to transpire and then we talk about it after. Words like being proactive, I think oftentimes just bantered too easily. And I say that reflecting on the micro level as an individual. One of my sisters always said, you can't be a lazy parent. You need to be involved. Your child getting from here to here, you either taking the child, going with the child, or ensuring that the child is on the school bus or in the company of some responsible adult to get to that place safely. And it's no different than you as the voter. So when you come back from the break, sir, maybe we'll ask some more. No, we won't ask about that. Maybe we might. We'll see. Please rejoin us after the break. His Excellency is always, so gracious with the time. The phone lines are there if you wish to have a call. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Breakfast is back this Saturday, March 25th, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center. Enjoy a tasty Caribbean breakfast of fried fish and fritters, liver and onions, ackee and saltfish, along with turtle gumbo and turtle stew starting at only $12. And help support your community. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman supports sight screening, prostate and colon cancer awareness, Miss Teen, Spelling Bee, and so much more. Get your Caribbean breakfast and support the Lions Club of Grand Cayman in their community efforts. This Saturday, March 25th, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Are you a Caymanian job seeker searching for employment? All jobs, whether full-time, part-time, temporary, or permanent, will be required to advertise on the Jobs Cayman portal. Visit work.ky. That's worc.ky to start your job search to see all available jobs or to apply. For assistance in registering or to learn more, call toll-free 1-800-534-9672 or customer care at 945-9672. 945-9672 today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks again to His Excellency for sharing with us. And I believe bittersweet is not only applicable to some good chocolate, but it's sometimes when we're going somewhere that we want to, but we're leaving somewhere that we don't want to at the time. So, as if I may share one of our listeners who messaged, and if it's okay to share with you publicly, this listener says, Governor Roper, I will miss you as a very good governor, safe journey back home, but to visit the island again one day as a tourist.
Oh, well.
And
that's very nice, and thank you to your listener for that message. I'm sure at some point we will definitely come back and visit, perhaps low profile and under the radar. But the first thing is we are going back to the UK permanently to live in the UK. I am leaving at the Foreign Office after what'll be almost 39 years as a career diplomat. The main aim to start with is simply to resettle ourselves in the UK, make sure we've got all our family around us, and then see what happens next. But this has been, a huge privilege to serve the people of these islands, the biggest privilege of my life, without any doubt. And we have really got some incredible memories of all three islands. I include the sister islands because we spent a lot of time in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, two amazing communities there. And I often say that when I'm in Little Cayman, I call myself a Little Caymanian. Nothing to do with my height, but I felt very much at home in Little Cayman, and in the BRAC, I've almost felt adopted by Cayman BRAC. It had been a really sort of warm and friendly reaction from everyone in Cayman BRAC, and I've attended lots of events, and I had a really outstanding sort of farewell visit with Lizzie last week, and I want to thank Minister O'Connor Connolly, who accompanied me. The Premier came as well to BRAC, and District Commissioner Mark Tibbetts for all the arrangements there. We had a whistle stop tour around the hospital, the old people's homes, schools, the sports field. We sort of packed everything into a day, and then opened their new buildings in the BRAC, which are just opposite the current government administration building, but wonderful new buildings as they continue to deliver and customer service for all their people. So we will go back with lots of memories, and obviously. I've worked very closely with the Deputy Governor, and a big shout out to him. We've collaborated very, very closely on so many issues, and he's given me outstanding support throughout the 4.5 years I've been here, as has everybody in the civil service. And it's been a genuine pleasure to work with some very, very talented, hard-working and committed people. And I go away from Cayman with this sense that there are so many decent people who just want to make the lives of others better, and I've in my privileged position as governor, because I get to meet a lot of different sectors of the community. That's the Caymanian, the Caymanians. I met a lot of Caymanians in their homes as well, going around the districts, but also a lot of the other groups, the charity groups who arrange all sorts of different events, but there are so many people in this community who just want to make the lives of others better, and that I think is a really positive thing for Cayman and this community.
If I may ask, I think we always, in some phrase that I've decided to sort of retweak, we all talk about, we want to move forward. I've decided to recoin that on a personal level and say, instead of moving forward, move in a positive direction. Quite distinct.
Yeah.
The intent is the same, but forward isn't always necessarily the way you go in order for it to be positive.
Yeah.
Despite the unprecedented events that unfolded globally and in the Cayman context, what more would you have liked to see? What different? So that we can be, perhaps a safer, healthier, more stable society.
There are a couple of things that I would say, but I'd start off by just saying that Cayman has so much to be proud of. This is an incredibly successful jurisdiction with a world-beating financial services sector, which kept us going through COVID, and an amazing tourism product, and just looking around the islands at the moment, we have a lot of tourists on islands, so we can all see just how it's booming really at the moment in terms of tourism, and I know the hotels are doing very well. And we have an economy which is doing well in terms of the budgets and the finances. They're probably in as good a shape as any country could hope for. Very little debt, surpluses. But I know it's tough out there for a lot of people, and the cost of living crisis is obviously impacted. And I know the cost of living is very high, and it is a real challenge for a lot of people on our islands. One of the things I have sort of emphasised is around a whole range of mental health issues. I do think that we need, as a community, to have a bit more honesty, a bit more courage about some of these topics. So topics like child sex abuse, sexual orientation, sort of just mental health itself, sexual harassment. I think as a community, sometimes there are cultural taboos around some of those issues. They tend to get pushed to one side in terms of child sex abuse. What I've seen is that often the family comes together and protects the family rather than the child, and we really should be protecting the child. Anyone who commits child sex abuse should be prosecuted and should go to jail. And yet I think there's cultural taboos around that. We've as the UK, we've tried to support all the overseas territories in this area. We've We've been working on child safeguarding for many years now, and it's a frustration to me that the UK has put in, I think, hundreds of thousands of pounds. It probably is probably well into the millions in terms of helping to set up like the MASH, the multi-agency safeguarding hub, and really trying to have the processes to deal with this better. But you run up against these cultural factors, which actually, no matter how many processes you set up, if you don't tackle the culture, the process isn't going to work. So that's one area, and I've said it publicly a few times. I just think that it's not something that happens overnight, but I think more courage and more honesty about some of these issues will help Cayman to deal with them. I mean, the other area which does concern me is the traffic, the quality of driving on our roads. And last year we had a record number of deaths on the road. I can't remember the exact number, 12, 13, which was up a lot from what we've had historically. We have strengthened the DUI, the drinking under influence laws, which I think was needed, because they were some of the most liberal laws in the world, actually. So we've brought ourselves more in line with the international norm. I think that speed cameras are absolute. More speed cameras are needed, and I urge the government to really actively consider doing more on speed cameras. But the quality of the driving leaves a lot to be desired, and I think as a community we need to do better. So those would be just two areas. But I would just say that this is a strongly performing British overseas territory, and I think the underpinning of an independent judicial system which supports our financial services industry, because it gives stability, it gives certainty, it gives people a sense that there'll be fairness in what they're doing, because ultimately it can go all the way up to the Privy Council in the court system. So we are a very successful jurisdiction. Obviously, the balance between the economy and development and construction and the environment is another huge topic, which I know is on a lot of people's minds, and that is, I've said it publicly before. I fully support Premier Panton's vision and on this, which is that we do need more balanced development, and we need to have a development plan. We need to have a climate change policy, and we need to look at all these issues much more holistically, and as I said, my office has behind the scenes tried to support where we can, and I'm sure that will continue under the next governor as well. And there are some big challenges there, and it's not easy, but it has to be the future for Cayman as the world grapples with climate change. And we are teetering on the edge of a crisis with climate change. It looks like 1.5 is very hard to meet unless we take very, very quick action, which doesn't seem as if it's coming with the urgency that's needed. So we in Cayman need to make our contribution to that as well. And so I think there's clearly a lot more work needs to be done on that. And the UK is standing by Cayman's side and will want to help and support.
Well, as I listen to you, I'm thinking that, we talk about the individual effort as well as the collective cooperative effort. We look at Cayman as a small place relative to the global, landscape, and our actions in Cayman relative to the environment, to development, to how we use our resources. Some would say, well, we're small. It doesn't have an impact. The developing, for want of a better term, world might say, well, you over here as the global north, you've now extracted resources. Why can't we do the same? But each effort can have a negative consequence for each individual. With that said, the cultural norms that we seem to have perhaps adopted, accepted, or at least turned a blind eye to, that relative to sex abuse and the like. I wonder to what extent, as we have a developing population, a growing population, that the views and values of some, as when sort of superimposed or alongside others, if as a people we no longer respect and reflect on what that behavior is and how do we counter it without it being inflammatory, without it being seen as insensitive, but also without it being seen as racist or prejudicial. A simple example: if in your household you don't wear your outdoor shoes inside. If you don't say to the person, listen, we leave our shoes outside. Here are, the inside shoes. They're clean. You wear them or you go barefoot. If we don't do that, maybe people don't understand that is the norm. And I wonder if the Caymanian people in their hospitable, docile, accommodating nature may not have done themselves a disservice relative to some of these values that are rearing their heads, for want of a better word. And how do we make sure that we understand the importance of respecting the core values of our society and ensuring that irrespective of position or office or person, that these things are not accepted?
I mean, I think it's about, on these sorts of issues, it's about leaders in the community as a whole. It's not just about government, but government obviously has a role to play, but it's about leaders across the community recognising that they need to stand up and say more and make people understand that it is okay to talk about these issues. And I mean, I think there are lots of organisations on Ireland that are starting this debate and are trying to talk about it. Alex Panton Foundation obviously is one, and they've had some very very sort of moving and sort of difficult discussions there. So I think this debate has started, but it does have some way to go. But I do know Minister Turner and her ministry are very committed to doing more on mental health, and I do feel that we're on a journey, and it's heading in a positive direction. In West Bay last week, I was privileged to be at the opening of the new halfway house. Miss Jackie O'Neill, who was a wonderful lady, done an incredible job there, which is Loud Silent Voices. There's the new long-term mental health facility, which is coming in East End. Obviously, we have the hospital, which is the immediate sort of place to go. So there's already the sort of the circle of sort of mental health care required there, from hospital to halfway house to the long term. So I think it's developing in a positive direction, and that I think is very welcome. I'm just saying, I think there's, having listened carefully to some of the discussions and the debates, I think going forward, even more honesty and courage in talking about these issues can only help the jurisdiction.
And perhaps the willingness of us as a people to not accept certain things, not if they were the norm elsewhere or may have occurred here with frequency. If they're not the things that we would want, we need to ensure they're not inculcated. That courage, that honesty. With that, though, there are some growing concerns globally, as well as the impact locally, from cost of living to inflation, to rise in interest rates, to food security. We're hearing more and more, either as parents, as educators, or as adults who are coaching, mentoring, otherwise engaged with our young people, their concerns about their future hope and prosperity. What can we, as the now political leadership, the ecclesiastical and economic leadership, do to give hope and opportunity to the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, these are issues clearly for the elected government rather than for me as governor, and I think government is very focused on this and focused on support in a number of areas. But we are, if you look internationally at the sort of the climate that we face, it is a really tough one out there at the moment. We're still dealing with the aftermath of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That's created all sorts of problems to do with energy, which has meant prices have gone up in many areas. We are still dealing with the aftermath of COVID in many respects as well. So it is a tough climate out there. But I think this government deserves credit for trying to support the community or in a number of different areas. And I've worked very closely with Premier Panton. I worked very closely with Premier McLaughlin as well, and they're two, I believe, outstanding individuals who have tried to do their very best for the Cayman Islands. And I'm working closely with Premier Panton at the moment, a man who I admire from his stand on good governance, on integrity, and on sort of standards in public life. And I think he really deserves our support on all of that.
Indeed. Your Excellency, we do have a caller joining us, sir. Invite you, if you're comfortable, put on those lovely headsets. We're speaking to His Excellency the Governor. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good
afternoon, my friend. How are you today?
Very good. And good afternoon to the Governor.
Good afternoon.
Well, because I love art, I would want to ask an artistic question. I had a chance to do some exhibitions in the UK just before the lockdown, maybe like 2018, 2019, the Oxo Tower. That was great, and then the lockdown came. So I want to ask about opportunities for individuals from Cayman in the UK when it comes to art. My first question, and then my final question would be, who is your favorite Caymanian artist and why? I'll just pay attention and listen.
That's very hard for me to single out somebody, but there are so many I could single. But on your first question, I think that would be it would be a domestic policy lead for the sort of Ministry of Culture. But I know my office would be very happy to support, and we'd like to be sort of kept informed. And I'm sure if we can help with contacts at the UK end, we would. But I think if I think the Ministry of Culture would be the first point of call to try and set that up for any artists who want to go from here. There are so many amazing sort of artists in Cayman. I'm not going to sort of single out lots of them. I've got Mr. Christian, the sort of the West Bay artist coming to Government House actually on Monday, because he's presented to Government House one of his wonderful pictures, which is quite large, and we're going to leave that at Government House, but we've bought ourselves a smaller version of it. It's an old sort of Caymanian painting, blue with a woman and the sort of water. The water bowl, and it's a beautiful picture, and we will very much enjoy taking that back with us. But I think I've spent a lot of time with the National Gallery, been to many of their events, and toured the National Gallery many times, and I think we have a wonderfully brilliant National Gallery and director there, and I think we have a lively sort of art scene in Cayman, and again, for a small jurisdiction, it's one of those areas where we're really punching above our weight. So I think there's a lot to be proud of.
And as a caller was sharing, as he says, an artist, that's another thing. We've seen two things: one, the recognition and respect of our artists, but also the willingness for them to pursue their passions, but for us as a society to say, hey, you don't need to do what you probably were told way back when. Oh, get a real job. Pursue this thing. It can be lucrative, financial as well as rewarding in other ways. So that's another healthy step in a maturing economy.
It is, and we're getting quite a lot of farewell gifts, which are wonderful. A lot of them are Caymanite, and you have Mr. Esteban that producing some really extraordinary pieces of work. So there are many examples in Cayman of really outstanding artistic work, and I salute them all.
Yeah. Now I'm really grateful that you have been so gracious, always, for your time. We do have one of the callers, sir. If we, as you took it off, he said there's another call. Welcome, good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to know that our governor, Mr. Roper, is on air.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that you probably will have many more individuals. I'm Daphne Orat, and I know you probably have many more who would like to call in and say something at this point, but I just wanted to briefly, though it comes straight from the heart, that I have really appreciated appreciated you, sir, and your lovely wife, Lizzie. It's always a joy to meet up with both of you, but in particular your wife. And so I just wanted to wish you Godspeed. May God bless you. I thank you for becoming a part of our Cayman family. And I trust that you will never forget that you will have a standing invitation to return anytime you would like.
Right.
I know you'll miss all those lovely sunsets and the exciting times around the governor's residence. But you're always welcome to come back. God bless you, sir.
Oh, well, thank you very much indeed. That is very, very kind of you, and I really appreciate those comments. We have greatly enjoyed being amongst you, and I will pass that on to Lizzie as well, who has really sort of loved being here, and as like myself has tried to get involved in lots of different things, including she even played the oboe in the National Orchestra. She was involved with the Pink Ladies, and she's also read to school children at John Gray. She worked voluntarily at Jasmine for a while as well, and she's also been part of this sort of, I think it's a fortnightly Caymanian ladies quilting group, which was gold dust for me, because I gained some wonderful snippets of information from those fortnightly meetings. Not that I attended them myself, but I know she loved attending those, and has done that and made many good friends in that group and throughout Cayman. But thank you for your comments. That's much appreciated.
That love, I think, is evident, and it's not only the respect that they have for you, the person or the office, but what is reciprocated. So we do have the newsbreaker, the callers. I know that you all of your taxing day, but we have a few more minutes if you wish to share.
Of course.
All right, so a caller, if you are, stay on the line. After the news, we'll take your call. Please stay tuned.
Keep your station dialed into Radio Cayman, Friday, March 24th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. as we broadcast the Lions Club of Grand Cayman, Benzarama Opening Ticket Drive, live from the Mango Tree.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
When you're craving something big, something tasty that gives you that lip-smacking satisfaction, something that hits the spot, there is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
It's pretty tasty.
Filling and full of flavor. Try our new sweet onion steak teriyaki with a twist, or the classic chicken teriyaki. Top it with green pepper, onions, cheese, and that sweet onion teriyaki sauce, all piled on your favorite artisanal bread. Satisfy that craving with a footlong from Subway.
Fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty.
Let's make it a meal with a drink, chips, and cookies. There is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
Crystal Entertainment presents
Sweet Sensation, a 70s, 80s, and 90s event.
This is a grown-up event at the Grand Pavilion Courtyard, Friday, March 24th.
Gates open at 7:30 p.m.
You must be dressed in full black or full white and come on down and dance all night. Get your tickets early, 45 pre-sold and 50 at the door.
Entertainment by Mixmaster DJ Alec, DJ Dave, and for the first time in Cayman, Sweet Sensation welcomes DJ Omar C.
Ticket outlet, Event Pro and Fashion Martin Bottom Building.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The headline news is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
Lands and Survey holding a special meeting tonight in East End for people to ask questions and discuss issues. It is part of their 50th anniversary celebration. Along with Lands and Survey, the Department of Planning will be in attendance. It starts at 6 o'clock at the East End Civic Center. In international headlines, as TikTok's CEO testifies before the U.S. House Energy and Commerce Committee, China's government says it would oppose possible U.S. plans to force TikTok's Chinese owner to sell the short video service as a security risk and warned such a move would hurt investor confidence in the U.S. Governments are worried that TikTok's owner, ByteDance, may give browsing history or other data about users to China's government or promote propaganda and disinformation. The Wall Street Journal reports U.S. authorities were considering banning TikTok if ByteDance doesn't sell the company. Federal prosecutors disclosed Wednesday that a witness expected to testify for the defense at the seditious conspiracy trial of former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio and 4 associates was secretly acting as a government informant for nearly 2 years after the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Carmen Hernandez, a lawyer for former Proud Boys chapter leader Zachary Rill, asked a judge to schedule an immediate emergency hearing and to suspend the trial until those issues have been considered and resolved. Lawyers for the other 4 defendants joined in Hernandez's request. The judge ordered prosecutors to file a response to the defense filing by this afternoon and scheduled a hearing for today, putting testimony in the case on hold until Friday. The U.S. Attorney's Office did not immediately comment on the filing. Those are your headlines. I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
The headline news are brought to you by Health Services Authority.
When you have a sports or fitness-related injury, trust the expertise of the HSA's Sports and Exercise Medicine Clinic to get you back in the game. Our internationally trained and certified physicians specialize in sports traumatology, sports medicine, pain management, and orthopedic surgery. For treatment of common injuries such as tendonitis, arthritis, tennis elbow, rotator cuff, or knee tears, schedule a consultation with the Sports and Exercise Medicine Clinic at Smith Road Medical Center by calling 949-8600 or visit hsa.ky for more information.
Holy partner. K-Man, we had to do it again.
What a y'all want?
Loud Productions alongside The Bay. The Bay Islands of Honduras official radio station. Present the return of the Bandan series from the Bay Islands of Honduras. For the first time in Grand Cayman, it's Jensen. He's out. Jensen and the boys.
No, it's sorry to those brown eyes.
Jensen.
Everybody.
Yes, sir. Hold your partner. It all kicks off on Friday, March 24th at Coral Isle in Cayman Brac. Then on Saturday, March 25th, Bandans arrives to Grand Cayman. Jensen and the boys performing live 8 p.m. sharp at the Mango Tree. Then on Wednesday, March 29th, Jensen and the boys performing live on the beach at Eastern Star Bar, 8 p.m. sharp. Get your tickets now at CaymanEvents.co, the Mango Tree, or at Coral Isle Club in Cayman Brac. For more information or VIP tables, dial 916-7667. All the way from Roatan, the Bay Islands, the Bandan series returns. This time with Jensen and the boys.
Holy partner. For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, X-ray, and mammogram. All of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable. MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
Puritan Cleaners, now using the most popular and eco-friendly cleaning solvents. 2 convenient locations to serve you: Savannah Countryside and Eastern Avenue, Georgetown. Drive-through, rain or shine, free pickup and delivery services available. Call Puritan Cleaners, 949-7104. Also ask about our in-house discounts. Puritan Cleaners, you feel good when you look good.
Puritan Cleaners, 949-7104. That's 949-7104.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks again to His Excellency for joining us. And just as a quick programming note, we do have the election supervisor joining us for another segment thereafter. But for now, if I may say publicly, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to sit across the table and allow our people to hear directly from His Excellency. We do have a caller, sir, as we go to the phones. Hey, welcome. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling. We had a caller, sir.
Put on the spot.
Yeah. No, but as we listen, and as the lady called earlier, and as many who've called in the past, and as the things we've heard, there is a healthy respect for democracy. There is a healthy respect for participation. Through you, could I ask your words and advice to us as the general populace, but as the electorate in particular, in trying to promote and preserve the democracy, to respecting and valuing the service as well as the sacrifice of those who've either fought in wars or who still serve on the front lines to ensure that we have this thing that may easily be forgotten or taken for granted.
Yeah.
There's a conflict in Europe, Western Europe almost, that has global implications. There are things regionally, from drug interdiction to human trafficking to all sorts of things that could destabilize regions, to impact individual lives. So with that in mind, I'll use the word, and you please guide me, political engagement and involvement, and the notion of a populace as voters in a democracy, ensuring that they understand what is unfolding, they access and engage the elected to make sure that, hey, we're doing this thing because it's going to be good now, but even better later.
No, I think you just made some very good points there. I mean, we shouldn't take democracy for granted. You look at Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine and see how that happened so quickly, and freedoms, people's individual basic freedoms can be threatened in that way. So we should all not take our democracy for granted, and we should be grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy. I know that the elections supervisor is coming in, and I think he's going to urge everyone who hasn't registered to vote, and that's really important, because we want people to engage in our elections, in our voting system, and I think we are aware that there are still quite a few people out there who do have the right to vote, and we encourage them to come forward. I think we have a very vibrant and lively democracy in the Cayman Islands, and I want to pay tribute to the press and the media and the work that they do, because they're a big part of that as well. So I'm sure that the election supervisor is going to say the same thing, but we would just encourage everybody to engage in our democratic process, and then when you have the opportunity to vote, come out and vote, because you choose the elected leaders that we have, and we have an opportunity every 4 years to do that. So it's really important to have as many people as possible participating in that democratic system.
Indeed. Well, we do have a caller online. Welcome. Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, and also good afternoon to Your Excellency.
Good afternoon, sir.
Governor Robert George Ebanks here.
Hello. How are you?
Good. A quick call. I want you to know, sir, that you are the template, if I could say so. You are the template going forward for me in regards to what a governor should be.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind.
You are I don't know if you could give us one last wish before you leave, is let me get somebody to come and clone you, because I would like to clone you and keep you down here, even when you retire, because you have been nothing but the perfect governor.
Oh, well, that's very kind.
I wrote to you, I think, when you first came.
Yep.
As I do all governors, and I wish you all the best as a private citizen, and I do that to all the governors. And in fact, I also wrote you one time when people were crying out about the LGBT legislation. And
yep.
I think that letter was titled something like a sort of a Jamaican colloquialism saying, "In I go so." Do you remember that letter?
I do.
You must make sure that goes in your archive, because that is it don't go so. It's exactly how it turned out to be.
Yeah.
That's not what I was calling about. I was calling to let you know I'm sad to see you go.
Oh, well, thank you.
I speak as a private citizen, and I speak powerfully, and my father made me with strong vocal cords, but I think I speak for all of the people of the Cayman Islands. I want you to know, sir, that I bid you farewell, and Godspeed. I send my love to you and Liz, to Lizzie. The only gripe I have is that somehow or another you took me off of the social invitation list for the governor. No, just joking.
Well, I can assure you it wasn't deliberate, and we don't tend to control the guest list because it's often the organisations that.
I've been in the news too much.
I'm sure that's not true, but I do appreciate very much your comments, and we have absolutely loved being in the Cayman Islands, and it's been, as I said earlier, the biggest privilege of my life to serve you all, and we're going to miss all of you. I can assure you of that.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. And I think from all walks, as the caller sort of indicates, there's a healthy respect both for the office of governor, but the office holder as well. And we leave many legacies. I think at the end of the day, we never know exactly the impact until long after departure, whether from the physical space or from this realm altogether. And maybe that is where we need, as an individual, to look more closely in the mirror and ask, what is it that we're trying to achieve? And that sense of self-glory and aggrandizement, many could probably look more closely and ask, do they want honor or do they want humility? To you, sir, it's been great.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much to everybody out there, and I'd better move aside and let our excellent election supervisor come and do what he's planning to do. But thank you again, Dwayne. It's been a pleasure to come on these shows, and I wish you and Radio Cayman all the very best for the future as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And I think we're going to see great things here for our people in the country as we work together in unity. Blessings to you all. Have a very safe return flight. When we return, the election supervisor will be our guest. Please stay tuned.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Born September 25, 1947, at Watering Place, Cayman Brac, Royce Adolphus Dilbert was the firstborn son to Helen and Grace Dilbert, née Tibbetts. As a young boy, he attended Weston Primary School, then later Gainstead High School in Jamaica, when the family moved there to be closer to his dad, who was chief engineer on Cockernel ships. During school breaks, he would work at Hannah's haberdashery store as a wrapper. Wanting to be a seaman and engineer like his dad, shortly after his 16th birthday, Royce would join his dad on the Cockernel ship, the Kirk Pride, as a messman, later working on other Cockernel ships, for Bawden Shipping on the Merkel, National Boat Carriers, West Indian Towing Company, and West Indian Lines. Mr. Dilbert would enroll at National Technical School, and at age 25, he achieved his chief engineer license. By this time, Royce had worked his way up the ranks from BR messman to wiper oiler, fireman, second and first engineer to chief engineer.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your Sister Islands.
Discover all that our Sister Islands have to offer.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. Become a member today. With 6 flexible life cycle funds, we help you plan for financial security in retirement. We keep our members informed with the plan's performance through quarterly fund fact sheets. We have an all-in expense ratio of 0.75%, over 16,000 members, and 337 million CI dollars in assets under management. If you would like to join or require further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. Become a member today.
But I do have some questions.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks too to His Excellency for his wonderful company and the opportunity to share. And as you heard him say, as much as his office holds such great influence within the community, the amenable humbleness of the person so graciously yielding. Hey, I have the elections supervisor coming on, so let me not impose anything else. Such a gracious man, Mr. Howell, huh?
No, absolutely. Good afternoon to you, Dwayne, and certainly Dwayne and your listeners as well. My pleasure to be here. So I'm following my boss's footsteps when it comes to the elections office, because he does the direct appointments for the seat when I'm there, and when I'm functioning as the supervisor of elections, he is who I report to. Yeah. So
and thank you for that too. I think we couldn't have perhaps timed it any better if we even tried.
Absolutely.
And for those who are listening, we are speaking to Mr. Wesley Howell. With great respect to all the wonderful things he may do, from playing instruments to reading poetry to... No, just kidding. Today, the hat he's wearing is as elections office supervisor elections, right?
Yes.
So that's what we're talking to specifically.
Absolutely.
All right. With that, maybe at the outset, for those who are not familiar or maybe not as familiar, we have general elections. We operate in a democracy. We know how the process unfolds somewhat, and it's not a case where this one can decide today there's an election and it happens this afternoon.
Yeah.
There's a process. There's a process of voter registration, qualifications for electors / voters, qualifications for those versus candidates. There is the event of the day in terms of the security, and I'll use the word, and hopefully it's not that mission into that area to be able to cast the ballot, and then the confidence of one, that it's a confidential ballot, but two, the people in there are all people who understand the process, so that the perception even of voter fraud is as reduced as much as possible.
Absolutely.
So that integrity is healthy and helpful.
Absolutely. So I had the pleasure of serving as an international election observer in Jersey, Channel Islands last year, and it was great to go to a different jurisdiction and see how they go through. There were some areas there that I thought, that would never fly at home, because our level of checks and balances, they were a lot more trusting of the process of the individual. So a lot of things that we do belts and braces, they didn't bother to do at all, and nobody seemed to care. They were all trusting of. So, for example, during the count, none of the candidates or their agents bothered to come inside while the count was happening.
Right.
In our election cycle, the count is a very involved process where the candidates themselves, are in the room, or their trusted agents are there to be part of that process, and do their tally sheets and that kind of stuff. So it was a very different experience,
right?
And helped, I think, to give me some ideas on ways that we can continue to improve our processes, and hopefully get some legislative changes through as well.
Okay.
But the reason I'm here today is our current legislation for voter registration has an active, ongoing voters list that is always being produced on a quarterly basis. But associated with that are some deadlines. So there's a young man in my house who is now of the age to vote, and despite my nudging, he didn't fill out his forms until 9 days after the last cutoff, which was January 1st. Now, had he done it on or before January 1st, he would have been on the list that comes out on April 1st, 3 months later. Because he missed it by 9 days, he doesn't come on the list until it comes out on 1st July. So it's almost
every
6 months.
quarter, right?
Yeah, it's every quarter.
Yeah.
So you miss it by a day, you're waiting almost 6 months to get on.
Yeah.
So when the government and the Parliament essentially passed the motion signaling the government's okay to proceed down the road of the referendum on the issues of decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana, as well as the establishment of a national lottery, we thought, well, we best ensure that, we make enough noise around voter registration to get people who might have an interest in voting one way or the other to get on the list if they're so qualified to do so, particularly because folks would not be aware of these sort of long lead times and deadlines. So April 1st is coming up. All Fool's Day, but it is really the last day for voter registration as well. So we've been doing some supermarket visits. We've been doing some additional hours at the elections office and pushing the fact that you can download the forms, attach your relevant documents, and email those into either the specific registering officer for your area or to the General Elections Office website email address, and we can then process it from there. So we have some of those dates coming up, including, tonight we're at Hurley's, Grand Harbour.
I'm hoping that as much as I say this, and as sort of politically involved as it is, that it's never seen as a political statement.
Mm-hmm.
And with respect to you as the supervised election, but as the individual you are, guide me so that it's not political. I've always said to people that if you are eligible to be registered to vote, please do so. Because if you're in a democracy, whether you turn out on election day for a referendum or a general election or a by-election or whatever it is, that's your choice.
Absolutely.
But if you're not registered, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, so in 2017, we did a survey and we looked at the number of persons who weren't registered to vote, and the biggest block were our younger people, And it's still the case now. So we worked with another radio station and some media folks that they had and the youth services unit, and came up with a very sharp, hard-talking video that started with the hang line, "Voter, shut up," right? And I remember my boys at the time, they would have been, 14, 15, and it popped up on their social media for the online gaming and whatnot, saying, "Dad, did you really sign off on that? Like that so in your face?" And I go, "Did you watch the video?" And they go, "Yeah, it caught my attention. I watched it." And I said, "That's why I signed off on it, because that's targeted to you." And the way it was actually marketed, it didn't even show up for people my age. It showed up for them and their feeds, because we were able to dial in the demographics that we were looking for. But that's to say, we have a growing population, growing through generational Caymanians, growing from persons who are joining us through marriage and other things. Persons coming in from other countries, like the Governor said earlier, really understand the power of democracy and the right to vote and the ability to vote in a peaceful, law-abiding, and well-respected election process. They are registering as soon as they're able to, for the most part, right? So I am encouraging, the generational Caymanians who have probably the most impact to get from this, the younger folks. My two sons and that age group, who's going to have to live a longer period with the decisions that we're making now, to say, this is your way to have your say, and to select the best person that you think is there to take the country forward. So that is it. In a nutshell, I always say you can be registered and choose not to vote, but you can't choose to vote if you're not registered, right?
That is it.
That's a mandate that I have, and if you want to have your say, then
Fisher cut bait, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I do understand that as fathers, sometimes to our sons in particular, we take a particular tone, not disrespectful, not mean, not harsh, but sometimes not as cuddling, so to speak, and that hopefully cause the young people to say, you know what, I'm going to get involved in this thing. I'm going to show you, because then they start. But with that in mind, as we talk about eligibility, we know every quarter, I think there's still 12 months in a year. I think there were 2 added way back when under some Roman emperor.
I think next year's a leap year. So
Who knows, right? But let's go and promise that, that there's still 12.
Yeah.
So every quarter, and it just happens that April 1st is, if you don't get it by the 31st of this month, we wait till the next time. So the individual like your son, who is, well, first off, you have to be 18. and
has
older
be
to be able to vote.
To be able to vote, yeah.
Okay, so
if we do have an election upcoming, persons are allowed to register early if the date is set, and they'll be 18 on or before that date. So you could be 17 in like 11 months, but you can still fill out your paperwork, and you'll come on. It'll be a little note next to it to say not eligible until their actual birthday, but then they can register that way.
So given 12 months in a year, and this is almost the end of the third month of this year. Let's say someone is going to be 18 on the 30th of December. Not going to go to 31st, maybe sometime in December. But they want to register to vote. What's the earliest that person would be able to register? Now, we know that, well, you tell me, so that's easier to understand.
We've done that for students, for example, that are going off to university. So they'll submit their paperwork to the registering officers, who would keep it, process it, but not make it effective until that day. So it wouldn't even show up on the revised list or anything like that. But we will take those documents, assuming that they don't have any issues with their right to be Cayman,
the qualifications and
that would cause them to need a continuation after the age of 18. So, our folks will be able to determine from that whether or not their right to be Cayman is one that needs to be continued, or it's indefinite one that would not be an issue. If that is the case, so they would then usually advise them, you need to go sort yourself out with the Department of Work, and then you can then bring that paperwork to us, and we'll process from there.
And I want to ask about that, and the reason why I'm asking, because there's some of us that in our minds, maybe through either encouragement or through their own ethos, are forward thinking and proactive and all the good things that we think are good, and they'll say, well, I'm going to be 18 in August. Can I do it? No, I'm going to be 18 in let's use December, since it's the last month of the year. But then there are those of us who say, well, you're not going to be 18 in tomorrow, but you know what? I get to it when I get
No,
there.
absolutely. It's like driver's license. You got some 17-year-olds that on the day of they're going to go book their test and go in, and others, are in their 20s and still hadn't driven yet. So it is a bit of personal preference.
Yeah.
But I do stress, I had 2017, one of the things that we did, we went around to UCCI, ICCI, and the folks at ICCI were saying, we would like to lobby the government for more financial support for ICCI. So as students, we go to school at night, and most of us work in the daytime, but we'd like to have some of these fees reduced. And I said, well, who's the Minister for Education? Who's in the cabinet? And they had no clue. And I was like, you're Caymanians, you need to advocate for yourself, but the way you do that is by going to your representative and the people that decide on budget allocation and resources. That's a key role for the cabinet and the parliament. And they ended up going out to one of the adult establishments on a couple of evenings and had their own voter registration drive and did a fantastic job for it. So, they were then able to connect. As a voter, I now have a voice that will have the attention of a decision maker. So this is a direct connection, and it does make sense to go down this road. So,
okay. Well, as we come back from the break, can we ask you to expound more on, as we talk about the voter registration, the eligibility, not just the age and the like, and you referenced the right to be Caymanian was the phrase. What does that mean, and how is that done, and the like, and but help us understand it so that more and more we get an appreciation for what is. That be fine?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, please join us after the break. Of course, if you have a question you want further clarification, by all means, give us a shout. We'll invite you to be a part of the discussion. Stay tuned.
They say variety is the spice of life, and that's why at Subway we are introducing the new boneless hot sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointments.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Water Authority Cayman wishes to advise its customers and the motoring public of wastewater infrastructure upgrade works along West Bay Road, adjacent to Burger King and Kamana Way. Preliminary activities will take place on Tuesday, 7th March, with the main works beginning on Monday, 13th March. These works are anticipated to last for several weeks. During this time, access to the southbound lane along West Bay Road will be somewhat, but not entirely, restricted. Water Authority Cayman and its contractor will maintain two-way traffic throughout. Traffic signs will be in place in the general vicinity of the works. All motorists are asked to drive with caution to ensure their own safety as well as the safety of the Water Authority and its contractor's staff. The Water Authority appreciates the patience and understanding of its customers and the public as it upgrades its wastewater infrastructure and apologizes for any inconvenience caused.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At Valley Med Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Buttontown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit Valley Med Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Buttontown. Live happy, live healthy with Valley Med Pharmacy.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks for joining us. And thanks to the Supervisor of Elections for being our guest. And as we're talking about voter registration and all things elections, maybe that's how we should phrase it, sir. I'm hoping that for me personally, I've always have this public and personal respect for democracy and the willingness that through example and action to be able to encourage people to participate, because whether we read history, whether we have family members who served in wars to, help to promote or protect democracies, we shouldn't take it lightly. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but if you lived on it under a regime, if you ever worked for any place where you can't say unless you've been told to say, are those freedoms that you want? And then if you've lived in Cayman where I have the right to publicly, no disrespect to His Excellency, to complain about the office of the governor, or to complain against the government of the day, or to, as long as I'm responsible and respectful, that's a right that is amazing. That, when people would like to have that.
No, absolutely. And we are in International Women's Month.
Yes.
We still have some of our ladies around that were
yes.
on the charging lines, lobbying, petitioning, prodding and pleading, demanding for the right for women to vote here. And, they're still here. Miss Georgette is one of those persons
yes,
who
sir.
has been very proud, rightfully so, of the work that she had done and her colleagues to ensure that women were able to exercise that right to vote. So, in our lifetime, that is a privilege that was not available, that then become available through actions of individuals.
And that suffrage that they had, if we look at it, say the U.S. for instance, realize that when they got it relative to when the U.S. got it, wasn't 1 year's difference,
No, absolutely. So we were doing some progressive things at that point in any event, right? So, and I'm just looking at the elected stats right now as we talk, but
yes, sir.
I can say it even without looking at that. The numbers that we have now would have more women than men registered to vote, and that's been the case now for several years. That the females are higher a higher percentage of voters.
And it's not necessarily a reflection. If I look at it in my mind, our population demographic, that it means that there are more females. Our population is almost evenly distributed.
Yeah.
But when we looked at the voter lists, there's significantly more women registered voters than there are men.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we talk about eligibility, could we ask, just quickly revisit, you did share it, but in reference to the message from one of our listeners, I'd ask the question, a person who wants to, they're not yet 18, they seem to qualify, but their birthday months and months down the road, let's say August, September, and they want to get the ball rolling now. I know you did share. Go ahead and do your stuff, but you won't come on until after your 18th birthday, whenever that is. What would you say to the person who's asking, how soon is too soon? Should I do it 3 weeks, 3 months?
So the registering officers would prefer 3 months. Sometimes they have to follow up on specific documents or the clarification that is necessary. And when it's like 3 days before, they'll leave a whole lot of time to get their work done. And they have a finite time in law to have the revised list reduced available for the revising officer, who's the chief magistrate, to review. That's published for public consultation, and then that goes forward then to become the official list when it's due to be published. So the timelines are quite tight. So registering 3 months before your birthday would be ideal for the registering officers. They can then, not that you're going to get on any sooner, but they can process their bits on the back end and have everything ready to go as soon as you become of age. So the right to vote is enshrined in the Constitution, and within the Constitution, it sets out those criteria, and then there's a couple of criteria that would disqualify you from the right to be registered to vote as well.
Okay.
So on the qualification side of things, you have to be Caymanian. So you talked about the right to be Caymanian. At one point it was called Cayman status, it was called other things. The current nomenclature in law is the right to be Caymanian, which some people don't like, but that's what the law says. So that's our internal domestic legislation that covers that. Has attained the age of 18, and it's a resident of the Cayman Islands at the time of registration. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're away for school or medical or work and those things that would automatically disqualify you. And has been a resident in the Cayman Islands for a period or periods amounting to not less than 2 years out of the last 4 years, immediately preceding the date of registration. And again, for those purposes, it doesn't count if you're away at school, if you're away working for the airlines or working for the government, or those sorts of things.
Right.
And there's some other reasons why, based on case law, domestic case law, where the chief magistrate would assess those factors and make a determination as to your right to be there now. On the contrary, then there's issues of disqualification. So typically we remove individuals. We're required by law to remove individuals who have been sentenced to more than 12 months imprisonment.
So if someone's in prison for longer than 12 months?
Not even in prison, just sentence. So you could serve 3 months of a 12-month sentence, have early release, but that sentence is still in effect. So you would lose your right to vote for that period of time that the sentence is running, whether or not you're in prison or not. So you had some folks come in office with their ankle bracelets on, so they're out of the physical prison, but they're still under some level of monitoring, and that sentence still runs, so they're still barred. Individuals assessed by the medical board to be of unsound mind, so those persons are not able to qualify, or if they were previously qualified, would remove them, and we would remove deceased persons. So we get the list from the courts in relation to the convictions. We get the list from the medical folks in relation to the unsound mind list, and we also get a list from general registry in relation to those persons that are deceased. We still struggle with Caymanians who pass away overseas and don't register their death locally. And in that case, I say to family members, please let us know. The registering officers are quite resourceful, and they comb through Facebook and the papers and gather the unofficial reports, and then they will follow up to make sure that they have the sufficient evidence to say, we can now take this person off because we have records that show that they've passed on.
So as we go to the caller, just in relation to prisoners then, just for clarity, a person who is either currently in prison serving a sentence for 12 months or more, or has been released but the sentence, so they're physically in the public, but they're still on
the sentence hasn't run its time.
Right. Yeah. If it's an election, they would not be able to vote.
Yeah. And that's different from an expungement. So it's not a criminal record. It's an active sentence of 12 months or more.
So what if the person is in prison for less than 12 months, physically in prison, and can that person still vote?
Absolutely. We also have individuals who are in prison on remand, so they haven't been convicted of anything, but the courts have ordered them to be detained while their matter goes through the legal system, and those persons can vote as well if they're registered to vote.
We understand it, but we're glad that you shared that.
Yeah.
We're going to ask more about that, sir. And to our listeners, supervisor elections will be with us only until 2 p.m. But let's take this call, sir. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us as we talk about voter registration.
Good afternoon to you, Sterling Lane. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, sir.
Here, gentleman in charge of things. The colonists, when they were given the right to vote and so forth, in the elections were certain qualifications where you had to earn a certain amount of money per year you couldn't vote. Because, for instance, in the 1938 elections in the big, was a colony in Jamaica, only 5% of the eligible voters actually voted because the requirement was that you had to earn, I think it was a minimum of £50 a year, and only 5% of the eligible voters earned that amount. So you can check that out, see that I'm not misleading people, but I think that's a huge country with a huge population. It was a huge colony, and only 5% could vote in those elections. So there were many qualifications placed on it. Of course, you are just speaking about some of them now, and people may see some of those people walking about with ankle bracelets, but not realizing that they can't vote. Maybe it's a good thing you just said that, Mr. Howell, because many of them might not have believed that they couldn't vote. May have thought that they could have voted. I'd like to ask you about this, what I hear, this upcoming referendum. What is this referendum specifically saying? What is on that paper that we're supposed to vote on? What does it say really? I've never been able to get that information from anybody.
So the government took forward a government motion that was passed. I think it was the 7th of December 2022. That motion essentially got the parliamentarians to vote for the majority in support of having a referendum as it relates to two matters: the decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana and the introduction of a legal national lottery. But the process has not progressed to the point that a referendum bill has been published, which would set forth the scenarios under which the referendum would run. So we don't have a standing referendum legislation in Cayman. So whenever we have a referendum, we have to pass a separate piece of legislation that effectively modifies the Elections Act, and then we use that. That bill, when passed into an act, and the corresponding orders that go with that, would set out the wording of the question, the date of the referendum, and any other details that are in there. So I don't have that yet, so I can't speak to the specifics. But if it follows the same track as other referendums, it would be a worded question for which there would be a yes/no answer.
In other words, this what I'm gathering from you, maybe because I'm a half idiot, does this have to go back to the parliamentarians to say whether to what it should say, or what you understand?
Yes, sir.
What I'm trying to say? What would be the final wording, and what are the people supposed to say yes or no to? Does that have to go back again to the House?
So yes and no. So the referendum bill would have to go to the House, but constitutionally the question can be set by the cabinet. So that can be done either through regulations or through an order in cabinet outlining what the question will be and the date of the referendum. If you think back to the cruise port, that was exactly what happened there. So it was a bespoke piece of legislation that dealt with how the operation would run, postal ballots, all that stuff, observers and those sorts of things. And then a little bit later on, then the cabinet then published what the actual question looked like and the timing for that referendum. So I would expect it to follow that same process again.
And then it would actually have to state that this is the percentage that is required to win a yes vote. Are you seeing what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. So constitutionally, they're
58%, 55% must vote one way or the other for you to get a effective answer or to get something that is acceptable.
Yeah, so constitutionally we have essentially two different types of referendum in the Constitution. Yeah, people initiated and the government initiated. The bar for the people initiated, for it to be binding on the government, is 50% plus one of registered voters, not people that turn out, but the number of persons on the list. For a government-initiated referendum, it is non-binding and advisory only, so there is no established percentage. So the government could be guided by a simple majority, or it could be guided by any other factors in there, but it's a non-binding, and there is therefore no bar associated with a government-initiated referendum, so as this one is.
Even a people-initiated referendum, if it's binding, it is binding only on the government that is in power at the time, not on the upcoming government if the government changes or whatever. Am I correct in saying that?
You've gone and you've exceeded my understanding of that section of the Constitution, so I would have to go back and read that to see if that's what we would gather from that.
People have been asking about that.
Yeah.
Is it binding only on the government that is in power when that referendum has been brought to the people, or is it binding forever?
Yeah, my gut tells me that it's binding for that period of time unless the matter comes up again. But I would defer that to some learned folks who are trained in constitutional law, which is beyond me.
Beyond me.
Yes, sir.
Than I do. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening, for sharing.
Thank you for your call and questions as well.
Yeah, Mr. We have another caller. Hey, welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne, and good afternoon, Mr. Howell. It's good to see you again on the show.
Hi,
good afternoon.
Yes, now I've got 3 questions, so I'll make them very brief. The first one is, do you have any statistics on how many of the registered voters are indigenous Caymanians and are status holders? That is one. Secondly, I heard something about the possibility, or that there was discussion regarding the requirement that somebody should have at least a grandparent who is born in Cayman or something to that effect, and that there was a proposal to remove that requirement and to make it more open. Can you comment on that, whether in fact there is such a proposal? And then finally, I did hear part of your response in relation to people convicted of felonies and that kind of thing. So I apologize if the question I'm going to ask was answered in that. There has been some concern lately in Cayman about how a member of parliament can be convicted for an offense up to 11 and a half months. They still are qualified to stand for elections. They can only get disqualified if they have been sentenced to a sentence of more than 12 months, and this is under the electoral law. And it seems to me that is less harsh than applies to people who are convicted of offenses and who are limited in terms of voting. Can you just expound on that a little bit more? as well as how does that fit in with the provision under the criminal records spent convictions law, which appears to say that even if your record is expunged under that act, that you still cannot stand for election to the Legislative Assembly. So just a general comment on that would be very useful. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So, Mr. Howell?
Start with the first one, the last one first. Again, similar to the qualifications for voters, there's qualifications for elected office, which is a bit more stringent in some regard. There is a facility where if you're convicted of more than 12 months, you can't run. But there's also the provision where if you've been convicted of an offense of dishonesty,
bankruptcy and the like,
theft, those sorts of things, then you are then barred from running. Period. And even the criminal record spent conviction bill has a specific carve out that says for the purposes of elected office, this doesn't apply. There are other carve-outs in there for persons working with the vulnerable, with the kids, elderly, that even if your record is clean, you're obligated to disclose that at one point in my past, persons working for the legal fraternity and some other ones in there, if memory serves me right, that is there. But definitely the offense of dishonesty is one that would bar individuals, and that particular bit was actually tested in the last election, or the one before, the last election, and the Grand Court upheld that was a factor that would disqualify individuals.
Mm-hmm. And then
the question about the demographics of voters in relation to quote unquote New York Caymanians as opposed to generation Caymanians. I don't have that information. I mean, you can look at the register now and look at the names, and there's some foreign last names on there that are different, but that's not an indication, because you could have persons marrying, taking on the name of their spouse and changing the names and whatnot. But I can say, as our population has grown through immigration and marriage and other things like that, not just through birth, we've seen a likewise growth in our register of electors. So. Yeah.
Is that a statistic that we could find if we were to do the analysis to the elections office, saying to the caller's question?
I don't know how we would get that information.
Okay.
Because we would have to go back to individuals' private information about their historical bits, and including their parents and grandparents. So that would involve, because you couldn't get that just from general registry.
Right. So to the caller's first question about maybe clarify. I as I'm listening to him, there is an assumption, and I'll have publicly shared this and asked the office because we've received it. Is it our understanding that to qualify as a candidate, there is some requirement that the person has to have a grandparent? Is that true? If so, what is that?
Yeah, so there is a number of qualifications that are specific to individuals, and if they're not born in Cayman, then they need to go through this sort of generational bit that is in there. So yeah, he's absolutely right. So the bar is higher for candidates than it is for voters, and I think arguably so. But I did oversee an election for the credit union for their board of directors, and as part of their putting themselves forward for that, they had to go through the SEMA vetting process.
Right.
And the documents that they had to do for the due diligence for that aspect was so far and beyond the sort of single two-sided page that we do for a candidate that I thought, wow, there are more checks and balances for the board of directors for the credit union than there is for elected office in Cayman. So and there's some people that say it's already too stringent, but others will say we could do more to ensure that we're putting forward the right people to represent the country.
So the born in I beg you, and Mr. Howell, less than 3 minutes left. He does have to get back.
We can go a bit longer, because I think we might have a couple other things to cover.
Yes, sir. At your convenience. Yeah. We have allowed the time, and as we share, we don't want you to be hostage, but we certainly don't want you to rush. So with that part, just to expound a little bit more, the requirement is that you have to have a grandparent connection. And you said something about born in Cayman. Is it different if you're born in Cayman?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just read a subsection of the Constitution. So this is Section 61, subsection 2, subsection A. If the individual was born outside the Cayman Islands, has or had at least one parent or grandparent who would have been born in the Cayman Islands and is Caymanian, or if deceased, would have been Caymanian at the date of the nomination of election, and who at the date of his or her nomination for the election process has no other citizenship save for the right he or she may have to some other citizenship by virtue of his or her birth outside of the Cayman Islands. So there's some very specific wording in there, and people thinking back to the Rivers Hewitt matter that went before the Grand Court was actually going to the heart of the dual citizenship and the Pledge of Allegiance type issues, all of which are qualifying, disqualifying criteria in the Constitution.
With that, sir, just for clarity, if an individual was born in Cayman, but whose parents were not born in Cayman, but now are Caymanian through status or some other means, but they themselves, either both or were not born in Cayman, then that person, despite being born in Cayman, is that person eligible?
Would likely not be eligible, but
would likely not be.
There's some, and I say that very generally because we've had interpretations as to what the Constitution reads, and I did read it quite choppily there because I'm reading, but it is complex wording, right?
Yes, it is.
And when you apply all those bits, you really need to be a constitutional lawyer to get through some of this stuff. So
Philadelphia lawyer, my friends.
Yeah, which is why the supervisor of elections can't tell anybody that they can't run for office. If challenged, that goes to the Grand Court, and they answer that question.
And there's no appeal from the Grand Court on elections matters. Is that our understanding?
At this time, there's some recommendations that it should go at least to the Court of Appeals, and maybe we'll see that happen relatively soon here. But for now, the Grand Court is final, mainly so because you don't want to have issues of who's running the country drag on for years and years.
Well, I very gratefully you're so amenable with your acquiescence. We'll pause. When we come back, we'll take 5 minutes or 50 as you wish, sir. Please rejoin us after the break as we continue our discussion on voter registration with the supervisor of elections.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointments.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
CUC is committed to cleaner energy for Grand Cayman. We've aligned our strategy with the future needs of our country. The CUC team is working diligently behind the scenes, working together to create a sustainable energy future for us all. Using a mix of rooftop and utility-scale solar, our goal is to bring electricity costs down without compromising network safety or reliability. CUC has a plan and we are ready. Follow our journey at roadtorenewables.ky.
Let me tell you something. I've been fishing our island since I was a boy, and it's getting harder and harder to get a good catch. Maybe it's because there are so many more people in Cayman than ever before. Maybe it's because of how the climate is changing. I don't know about that, but I do know that I want to be able to keep fishing and teach my children to fish one day as well. So it makes sense to me that we have certain areas and certain times of the year to fish for certain things. It feels unfair not to be allowed to fish where my dad taught me to fish, but I know that being patient now means we can keep fishing for many more generations. We're all in this together, right?
For more info, download the Cayman DOE app or visit doe.ky. Keep your station dialed into Radio Cayman, Friday, March 24th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. as we broadcast the Lions Club of Grand Cayman, Benzarama Opening Ticket Drive, live from the Mango Tree.
Radio Cayman, the voice, the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
The Cayman Arts Festival and the Georgetown Public Library are offering a new series. It's called Poetry at the Library, and it kicks off tonight at 6 o'clock with Caymanian poet Leonard Dilbert. Admission is free, but registration is required. You can find out more by contacting inquiries at CaymanArtsFestival.com. In international headlines, a top Russian security official warned today about the rising threat of a nuclear war and blasted a German minister for threatening Russian President Vladimir Putin with arrest, saying that such an action would amount to a declaration of war and trigger a Russian strike on Germany. The deputy secretary of Russia's Security Council, which is chaired by Putin, said in video remarks to reporters that Russia's relations with the West have hit an all-time bottom. Attempted book bans and restrictions at school and public libraries continue to surge, setting a record in 2022. This is according to a new report from the American Library Association that was released today. Now, more than 1,200 challenges were compiled by the association in 2022, which is nearly double the then record total from 2021, and by far the most since the ALA began keeping data 20 years ago. Today's report not only documents a growing number of challenges, but also the changing nature of those challenges. A few years ago, complaints usually arose with parents and other community members and referred to an individual book. But now, requests are often for multiple removals and organized by national groups, such as the Conservative Moms for Liberty, which has the mission of, quote, unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. Those are your headlines. I'm April Cummings. Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road. Yo, they just don't make things like they used to. I could throw my old Nokia into a brick wall and it would bounce back ringing. Today, seems like electronics are made to break, not work. When the gadgets go down, and they will, check out all about electronics in Tropical Plaza, Smith Road, the modern-day Inspector Gadget. Quality, professional repair service. All about electronics in Tropical Plaza, Smith Road. Specializing in repair, service, and installation of all electronics. All about electronics in Tropical Plaza, Smith Road.
Between the traffic, the meetings, kids' activities, there just isn't enough time. Best Health Pharmacy was a game changer. Not only are they centrally located on Eastern Avenue, but they deliver prescriptions for free anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. I could not believe it. When my prescription ran out, they ran it back to me. Best Health Pharmacy, located at Crown Square Plaza on Eastern Avenue, across from Edie's Decor, offering free prescription delivery anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. Call 949-1301 or WhatsApp your prescription to 924-5358. Best Health Pharmacy. Your health, your convenience is their priority.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and Mr. Howell, as the supervisor of elections and only in this capacity, sir, if I say this correctly, that's the hat you're wearing as we talk about voter registration. He's given us another 10 minutes or so, and we will promptly end at 1:15 to allow you to get back to the stuff. Thank you for helping us to understand the ongoing voter registration process and the like. Could we ask maybe a couple of other things? You shared earlier about having the opportunity to be one of the observers in Jersey. And I always mix the two up, Guernsey, Jersey. And you're chatting about some ideas. And like, could we ask potential as you observe that, what sort of ideas, sort of...
So they have, various methods of counting the ballots that are different from our traditional tally system. That was one. The way that they managed things like address changes. So the voter address changes would come in if you file documents with one government agency, that would filter through and essentially update your voter registration registered address. So you switch your home address on your company registration forms, that would filter into your voter registration address. So you didn't have, or you do it for your driver's license in it. Right. So those were some quite unique bits. They have a multi-tiered approach to what were actually they made some massive changes to their constitution and their right to vote during this last election. But before that they had a combination of a parish level vote as well as a island-wide national vote happening simultaneously. So that was quite interesting. The other thing that they did was their judiciary essentially. They're judges of fact, not judges of law. So they're more like justices of the peace. They're the ones that ran the elections. So, but they would have individuals, sort of processing postal ballots, and they would take them in batches and drop them in the pan in the middle of the day. They were sending people out to the homes with ballots for people that couldn't make it to the polls, and they would come back and just drop them in. But they weren't elections office staff, and they weren't accompanied by anybody. So the whole level, I mean, we're very much check and balance to here with our processes, but the level of trust that they had in that process was eye-opening for me.
Right. Their voter turnout, their percentage voter turnout, do you recall offhand what that's like?
I can't remember. I can look up the report, but I do know that Cayman's voter turnout is definitely on the high end. We're usually around 80%. Some countries are scraping through at 25-30% voter turnout, and it's one of the arguments that I have with the international observers when they come down, because one of the things that they test the waters on is saying, what do you think about mandatory voter registration, or automatic voter registration? So you turn 18, you're Caymanian, we automatically add you to the list. And I said, but to what end? Are you looking for numbers on the list or numbers that will come out to vote? Because if people have an interest, we make it as easy as we can for them to register. But registering someone who has no interest in voting, why are we doing that? What benefit is it to the individual or to the country? So that's one of the philosophical arguments that I have with them on that regard.
And this is when you talk about trusting, and I was, I wrote down that, and I said, well, involvement. We have what would appear, a lot of confidence in the system in terms of voter participation, but also the credibility, the lack of any suspicion of it being voter fraud and the like. So we're engaged, we're involved as electors, as voters. With that, then, two other things. You talked about some of the ideas, and maybe we can incorporate them that would facilitate convenience and ease and administration and like. But what about possible amendments? You referenced earlier. Should there be some sort of appeal from the Grand Court? But any other possible amendments?
So there are a number of recommendations that have been made by two successive international observer missions now, as well as the domestic observer mission, which operated during the 2021 general election. Some of those are constitutional in nature. Like they have questions around if we could relax the constitutional requirements for who could run for office and who's barred from running for office type deal, as well as some other structural changes. But the issue as to challenges for those who are qualified to run for offices is one that, having gone through a couple of cycles now with matters before the court, and my baptism by fire was so I took over, and I'm still struggling to fill the cowboy shoes for Mr. Kearney Gomez as supervisor of elections. But hot on the heels of my appointment was the Grand Court petition, Rivers versus Hewitt, in which the elections office, the returning officer, was named as well. So I was headfirst into providing documents and whatnot for those arguments. But the determination from that was final at the Grand Court ruling, and the CJ oversaw that one, as he did the other election challenges that were brought by my office as allowed by law as well. And there's been some arguments that, having those decisions tested at appeal, the Cayman Islands Court of Appeal level, would be an ideal scenario because it can happen in a relatively short period of time, and we have the ability to have multiple legal minds apply themselves to the arguments and have some sort of review that the appeal process does allow. But to limit it at that point and not take it one step further into the Privy Council, because that then would make it a long duration appeal, and you have the ability for some political instability for that period of time.
Okay. We have a message. Could we read it to you and ask?
Oh, absolutely.
I'll read it almost verbatim with the exception of one word, and I'll just fix it. It says, will the 1950 laws ever get changed? Will there ever be electronic voting for the Cayman people living abroad? Like how so many Caymanians overseas ballot did not go on time, so it didn't come back on time, so their votes did not count.
Yeah.
Can he tell the public how many ballots came back late and missed the count?
And in the 2017 election, we had some challenges that went before the court, so we were delayed in sending out ballots because of that. I can't recall the exact number, but I do know that the number of ballots that were absent, even if they were received and they all went for the next highest candidate, would not have changed the result of the election. So if somebody won by 50 seats, we may have had 5 ballots that didn't make it in on time. And not all the ballots made it back because of processes. Some people decided that they weren't going to vote even after they got the ballot, right? But we have since, and we used that for the 2021 general election, and when we started sending out ballots in the Cruise Port referendum, we used commercial courier for that, which reduced the time frame. So we really had no issues as it relates to postal ballots. I mean, the countries that have no means of voting if you're overseas, Jamaica, our neighbors to the east, for example, you have to be in country to vote. There's no overseas component to it. Most people know that my background is IT. I'd love to do online voting, but we would need to have the necessary checks and balances in there. I think Mr. Tibbetts and his team that are working in e-government on the national ID will speak about the fact that some of the technology underlying, underpinning that national ID come out of Estonia, who have online voting. But that's done using the encryption criteria and identification criteria in their national ID card. So that smart chip enables you to vote using your encryption that's limited to you, so we know that it's you that's voting, and we're not going to do that. For me, the convenience of the voting has to be balanced with the trust in the system, and there's some people that want to go head first into this, but others want to ensure that if we do it, we can definitely not have the questions on whether or not the online voting was manipulated in some way, and it does reflect the actual vote that the person cast, and it was done by the individual who's that particular voter.
We all probably seen in the media in the U.S. allegedly that their presidential elections, a few elections, there were questions as to the validity. So,
and that wasn't even there is no online voting there.
Right.
There's electronic counting machines, and that's where they've taken issue with as well as issues with postal and country postal and those sorts of things. So
Okay. The last part of this message says, well, we know why the election date changed last election. But do he think our elections will ever go back to being in November? So do you think?
So constitutionally, we're bound to have elections within 4 years. So we could go back to November, but somebody would have to decide to shorten their term by or conversely, we can change the constitution that we can go up to 5 years or choose some bit in there. So we used to go in May. Now we're going in April.
and who knows what happened next time.
Yeah, so we could go earlier constitutionally, but to go beyond that would in my view, take a change in the Constitution.
So as we take these last two calls for us, with that then, there were many who assume that our election was fixed every 4 years on this date. We were expected to November. Ivan came. There was an agreement to change it, from what we understand, to May of the following year, 2005, with the understanding that there was an agreement for it to return to November in the even year after Ivan in 2008. Then it went to May, and then everybody said, well, it's now going to be May. And then we see what happened last time. So as a long roundabout to explain that, is it then that we don't have a fixed date for election? You just shared it, but just for people's complete edification, it could be next time, it could be May, it could be February, or could it? I mean, is it a fixed date in this?
It is fixed. So there are constitutional provisions for when the Parliament needs to be dissolved, and that's based on the timing for the last election. And then that starts the cascade towards setting the date for the next election and whatnot. So we can't go beyond the 4 years unless some act of God like Ivan, or we amend the Constitution, because that outlines those timelines that sort of tick down.
So just again, please forgive me. May, now last time was April. This next election would be
April or sooner.
April or sooner. It can't be in May unless there's a constitutional change. It could be earlier. Is there, like in the UK, they can't call an early election until a certain time period has expired. All right, that was how it was. I think my understanding. They had to be so many days of time into their term before an early election can be triggered. Right? I don't remember what it is, but it's like halfway point or something. Right? In the Cayman context, could we have an election? I don't want to make people excited or offended, but let's say December this year, or because it's now scheduled for 25.
Yeah, right? we could have a general election at any point in time. The Premier could request the Governor approve the dissolution of the House, which would trigger that. We could also have, at any point, a by-election if a member of the Parliament decides that they want to resign from the parliamentary position. They otherwise come disqualified, or they pass away, or are medically incapable of continuing on. The Constitution does have some provisions for that. Right. But we could have a snap by-election for one seat or a couple of seats, or we could have a general election at any point in time. It hasn't been typical in our country that we've gone early in our history, but other countries, governments have used that to either get a specific mandate from the government if they campaign on specific items, or if they think they have an ability to secure additional seats, then they'll trigger an early election.
Thanks for clarifying that. And again, before we take this call, in the absence of any of those other things for the by-election or what have you, if we were just having a general election, the latest it can go as it stands now, but for something that's transparent, would be April or sooner.
Yes.
Right? Okay, I'm not trying to belabor that.
2025.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you. 2025, not next year, people. Okay. I think we have one call, sir, with your questions. Let's just take this one call, I believe. Welcome, good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon again, Sterling Green. Good afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
I'd just like to say, I cannot see any reason why we can't differentiate on the elections between generational Caymanians and other Caymanians. With such a very small voters registration list, and with our very advanced electronics technology here, where information is at instantaneous almost on everything, and people have to get together their information for passports, parents and so forth, grandparents. And in many instances, they have to get that information. You got 3 or 4 months before registration ends for any period of registration, and there are months and months for 27,000 people. I don't see why we cannot have that information. I think it's important to know what percentage in each district, the 19 districts now, voters districts, voted as generational Caymanians and others. I think that's important for us to collate that type of information and who, it would just say on it, beside the name on that information, GC, Generational Caymanian, or so forth. And if they fail to prove that when they were applying for a voter's registration card, then it would just go down, they'd get their right to vote and so forth. So, but I don't see why we cannot have that information on it. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so persons don't have to qualify again if they're on the list. So all the persons that have been registered for decades, their information is on as we had it at the time. Some of those were done at door to door. So we just registered persons who proved that they came in at that time, and that's done and dusted. We actually have some people on the list remaining who are not Caymanian, from grandfathered in from 1972 Constitution, where the right to be Caymanian and Caymanian status didn't exist. So a person will be here because they're a member of the Commonwealth and they were domiciled in Cayman for a number of years and therefore qualified to register through that. So there's a handful of people still alive that do that are not Caymanian,
right,
as it now qualifies because they were grandfathered on the list. We could ask that question going forward, but just because that information exists with departments such as work and general registry, maybe we can't access that information from the elections office. Our data protection legislation doesn't permit me to go in on a fishing exercise to say it would be nice to know how many people are new and how many people aren't. So at that point, it could be something that we start going forward, but for the thousands of people that have been on for decades, that's not information that we would know, right, and therefore, that's not something that I can produce at all.
Well, certainly, your office and you directly are always invited to share with us through this platform as we inform and educate our listeners. As we invite you for your closing thoughts, could we just ask this question on behalf of one of our listeners?
Mm-hmm.
On Elections Day, and I'll extend it if to referendum otherwise, would there be a line for seniors, specifically for seniors on Elections Day?
So we do have access for persons who need additional assistance,
mm-hmm,
and or people that are on the outside are trained to bring those persons to the head of the line and take them in. It's kind of difficult to reserve a line because
mm-hmm,
the way that we vote, we want to ensure that you're only allowed to vote in one particular room. So in some cases, we'd had 4 polling stations within one electoral district. So each of those would have somebody that would escort you to the front of the line if you're pregnant, elderly, wheelchair with a disability otherwise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to show you how important it is, that's one of the factors that international observers judge us on, is how accessible the polling stations are for people in wheelchairs and otherwise. So,
right,
so not a dedicated line, but all our folks are trained to
right,
allow those persons to go to the front of the line, and we do explain when we do that why we're doing it.
Yeah.
We do it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Howell.
So I would get some licks if I leave here and not say that this evening we have some folks at Hurley's doing voter registration from 4:30 to 7:30. Tomorrow we're at Foster's Countryside and Foster's Airport, 4 to 7 p.m. Saturday we have some Saturday hours at the elections office, 10 to 4. Wednesday next week we're at Cayman Bay Foster's. All information on the elections website. If you're online and connected person, you can go online and download the voter registration form or the change of address or change of name form. It will outline what information you need to supply, and then you can just email those in either to the office at elections.ky or to the specific registering officer for your area. All that information is on our website. So go to elections.ky and go to town on that, or come out and see us at one of the airport, one of the supermarket locations as we go through the next week or so up until the deadline on Saturday for registration. So our final day, we were at 3 locations, Foster's Republics, the elections office, and Foster's Countryside.
All right.
So,
thanks very much, sir.
No, thank you for having me.
All right. We're going to pause and come back a few extra minutes, maybe I can get my friend here to sing with me. Right. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Look at you, listening to the radio, tuning in, getting stuff done. Total doer. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're getting your oil changed, or grabbing some chicken. Maybe you're doing something that's nobody's business but yours. Hey, that's cool. We're all doing something. Now you can join a whole new community of doers doing more on findyellow.com. With custom search, local experts, and trusted reviews, whatever you're doing, get it done on findyellow.com.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skin care, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020. Row Variety, centrally located in Tropical Plaza on Smith Road, carrying a wide range of household items, bathroom accessories, towels, clocks, handbags, clothes, shoes, jewelry, and more, and more, and more. You can buy from the big box retailers or support local. The better deals come from shopping local. Row Variety Store, Tropical Plaza, Smith Road. Telephone 924-9553.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thank you very much for this opportunity. And as we close out our program, we want to say a special thanks to His Excellency, not just for his diligence and the professionalism with which he, has served our country, and wish him personal and professional continued enjoyment and blessings as he returns to the UK. But also to our election supervisor for spending a few minutes, and by extension an invitation to all who are eligible to be registered, to get on the electoral ballot, to please go and register. As he shared, if you're not yet 18, but you'll be, say, within the next 3 months or so, you can start the process. If you are a registered voter and there is an election, a by-election, a general election, a referendum, then you have that opportunity to go out and mark the ballot. But if you're not registered, and then on that day, you don't have a choice whether you want to or not. We've seen over the years a very high, electoral turnout. The percentage has been great. It's waned a bit in the last two elections, perhaps, but let's not let that apathy creep in. Let's ensure that we get more involved, become greatly informed, and ensure that we participate in our democracy. Let's not take it for granted, and not because our parents and grandparents or uncles and granduncles and the like, and I know in many cases many of the women in our lives have fallen on the real front lines, who died in the trenches, who have defended democracies, but many are still enrolled in the armed services and as whether or not they were conscripted or whether they voluntarily signed up. They're there doing what they believe is important relative to having a democracy. So that freedom that we enjoy to complain publicly or to bitterly, as some of us would have heard our parents say, beat up our gums under the mango tree. We have that right because we are in a democracy, and it's not something we should take lightly. But it's also important and imperative and incumbent upon all of us as individuals to ensure that we actively engage and participate, become informed and engaged. Informed and engaged, so that through our involvement we make a meaningful, positive difference in our society as we age, but also for future generations. If our elderly and our young, as the bookends in our society, are not shown the respect and deference that they deserve, if they're not given the opportunities, if they're not nurtured, if they're not protected and provided for, we really have very little to look forward to. So that hope and prosperity, that opportunity and that excellence that we demand, we need to require ourselves to be those examples. Please have a wonderful afternoon. Please, as we move about our roads, whether we're cyclists, motorists, pedestrian, or somehow just standing somewhere near the roadways, let's be respectful and considerate, careful and cautious, as His Excellency has always reminded us, and perhaps we can start to champion that. The way we conduct ourselves on the roadways not only ensures our safety, but perhaps for some of us, the safety of others that we love and hold more dearly. So please, please, please be absolutely cautious on our roads. Tomorrow, accept the invitation to join Mr. Art as he starts the day off in the best possible way and for the record. Some excellent guests, including His Excellency, will be part of that discussion tomorrow. Come back for Talk Today. We'll end up, on an open line segment. We've invited a couple of individuals, hopefully one of whom will join us, and we'll have some good banter as we encourage the political discussion, the societal engagement, and as voters and members of the society, that we'll question and champion the things that help to make us a healthy democracy. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient